Alright guys, we're back with Shadows of Change 2.0 and we're going to be taking a look at all the Kislev changes today. So we'll look at all the units, all the abilities, I'll give you my opinions on their multiplayer viability, and as is tradition with this little series, we're going to be ending with a good old showcase battle. So firstly we have the new Lord, so he's going to be the Zhuzhina. So this bad boy is kind of like a Huntsman General. You can see he's got actually decent combat prowess in melee, a little bit better than a Huntsman General, which makes sense for a Kislev fight, right? 50, 40, 445 with good AP. He also has an anti-large missile attack, which is kind of cool, but what excites me most about him is the restock ability. So being able to put restock on a little Grom, for example, in an artillery duel is always a bit of a power fantasy. So he has restock, he has the Cursed Frontier, so this augments the missile prowess of nearby units. So he's got decent range. You could sit him next to, let's say, some Akshina Ambushers or some Kossars or any Kislev unit, really, because they're all hybrid shooting, and they're going to get a nice little bonus from that. Restock is not bad. You know, I think this is better for land battle, like a really kitey kind of long game where you're going to be using that on like a little Grom or some of your other important assets could be good. Heroic Killing Blow, Tal's Judgment. So this is very much like the Arrows of Akshai. It's kind of just like a ranged missile that does some okay fire damage. And then lastly, he's got the Armor of the Oblast. So this gives armor and missile resist for a short period of time. Again, if you're in like a double little Grom versus double Great Cannon duel, this is really good because it's going to give your cannon crews and your cannons 20% missile resist. And he can be mounted on a Warhorse. So kind of a cool little character. I don't know. I think he's overshadowed by some of the other Kislev characters. But overall, I think that the Zhuzhina will be okay. And I think he'll see some niche applications more so in land battle because of the restock being viable for like a kiting style of play. But in Dom, who knows? Maybe he'll tickle the pickle. We'll see. So the other thing we have is Katarin got some updates. So Katarin, of course, is pretty much the same in every regard, but she now has a Frostworm mount, which is super awesome. Puts her HP up to 8,300, and she also has the Ice Court Sled. So this is her Ice Court Sled. It has good AP, it has Frostbite. In my anecdotal experience, it functions very similar to like a Bear Sled. So if you wanted to go for like a Bear Sled build with a Patriarch, you could do Katarin, and then you could put her on this sled, which is going to make her very good, right? So then you get, not Heart of Winter, but yes. You get Heart of Winter, you get the Crystal Cloak for ward save, and you get Frostfang, and then you just have her be this like mobile Death Star with a bunch of sleds and a Patriarch, and you have her anchoring that and doing punishing AoE, which is super exciting. And of course, we'll be doing battles over the next couple weeks showcasing all this stuff. So Katarin, pretty hype for sure. Next up on the changes, we have Ostankia. We talked about Ostankia. She did get nerfed. She lost about 2,000 HP, which is great. I think that's a good change. And she has the lore of Hags. In this same video, we'll be showing the entire lore. There'll be a nice little breakdown of all that. So hang tight, and we'll go over all the spells in just a minute. That'll be a separate segment in the video. But that is Mother Ostankia, and she is ready to party. So next up, we have the Golden Knight, Narskia Lacia. And she has the Tsarina's Guardian, and she can be on Warhorse. So if you're going for a Kislev blob, like I said in land battle, like, let's go ahead and theory craft this. So she gives ward save immune to flanking. She also gives AoE leadership and melee attack as she takes damage. And she has the Totem of Urson. And this is kind of cool. It silences all nearby units, and that's rad, right? Like, if you're in a blob and your opponent can't cast spells or use abilities, like, that ain't terrible. So I could see you bringing her with the physical resist aura and then the Totem of Ursus. She also has this sword, which if she hits you with it, it locks you in place for 6 seconds. So that's arguably pretty good too, right? So you could have her... you could have Katarin, right? And you put Katarin on the sled, you cut everything, and you go with the Heart of Winter. And then you probably cut the armor's okay, but you're not going to be casting long enough. Yeah, and oh, Katarin also got Guardian's Call. I did not notice that in my first pass over. Okay. Sorry, guys. We literally just got this, and then there's like the embargo for all this is like the next day. So we haven't had a ton of time to look at everything here. But Guardian's Call, man, Katarin just got way better. So you have that, and then you just throw a Patriarch in there, okay? And of course, God, Kislev is just like the king of degenerate builds. Then you go for Salak's Lullaby and all the different buffs. And then you just throw in like a big Incarnate Beast, which also got buffed. The Incarnate Beast now has a Roar ability. It lost its anti-large, which is nice. So it'll get wrecked by other monsters now. But it still has the Mortis engine. And now it has the Howl of the Great Beast, which lowers leadership by -8. Super good, right? So like something like this. And now that Kislev has chaff units, you could open with a really, really good, like, or not good, but degenerate build. And then just call in a bunch of sleds after that. Oh boy, that's going to be something. But anyways, that is the Golden Knight. I don't know how meta she'll be, but I think for niche kind of degenerate blob builds, she'll be pretty good. You do have the Hag Witch here, of course. The Hag Witch is going to have access to the lore of the Hag, which we'll go over in just a minute. Same lore passive and all that other goodness. And other new units, we have the chaff units, and now we have the Kislevite Warriors. These guys have anti-large armor piercing. Very squishy, though. They only have 30 armor, so they can definitely get taken apart by enemy chaff units. But God, it's so nice having a chaff unit that's halberds. And there were so many things that Kislev had problems with. Like, they had problems with, like, Kroxigors, and sometimes Ushopti could do well against them, various monsters infantry, but no more. Now they have a cheap halberd unit. So Kislev just went from S tier to S plus tier, in my opinion, with all these new goodies. Hopefully they'll get a bounce pass at some point. Aside from that, we have the Frostworm. The Frostworm's okay. It's whatever. It's overshadowed by the Incarnate Elemental, in my opinion, but if you're looking for a cheap source of terror, it's still a really cool beast that does have Frostbite. I think there's some other rosters that would appreciate it, but Kislev just is spoiled by so many good things. I don't know how much play it'll see, but yeah. That's pretty much that. Some changes, of course. We'll do a full patch note video. We went over the Druzhina, Katarin, Ostankia changes, the Golden Knight, Hag Witch changes. They have a new chap unit, as well as the Ice Dragon, or the Frostworm. It can't fly, though. It runs on the ground. It tries its best. It really tries its best. We're going to be taking a look at the lore of the Hag, and I'll be giving you my thoughts on its multiplayer viability, what spells I think will be seeing a lot of usage, and which ones might not be the best. Also, in this patch, and we'll be doing a whole patch note video, probably talking about it at the beginning of one of our streams, there have been a multitude of balancing changes. Some have been very good. For example, Mother Ostankia has lost 2,000 HP, so she's not going to be some absurd raid boss who has like as much HP as giant monsters anymore. She's more in line with other characters, which is great. So hopefully that will bring her, rein her in a little bit and make, there's been so many games where you've seen her at like 300, 400, 500 HP get away and still cackle and cause problems. So now maybe she's going to be a little bit more risky to move in as aggressively as people do like to do. But I do think Mother Ostankia still will be very, very good. And another strange change, for example, is like Little Grom got buffed, and it's like so damn powerful now. You guys will see it in action, of course. But yeah, let's take a look at the lore of the Hag. Firstly, we do have the passive. The passive here is going to be the Fate of the Interlopers. So when you cast spells with her, nearby units, or all your allies essentially, are going to be getting spell resist, which is good. And all enemies across the entire map do take negative forward leadership. This is going to be insanely good against like Skaven, against Beastmen, against all these factions that have low leadership, and even against Undead, it could lead to crumbling too, right? So I think this is an excellent lore passive, and I would recommend pretty much always bringing it. I think that is quite good. Also, she got a new ability called Fury of the Land, so she can give fear and magical attacks and Strider to nearby allies. So you can use this on like some Winged Lancers or like some Kosovite Dervishes to give them fear. Not terrible, but honestly, it's an activated ability with a 2-minute cooldown. I think in competitive play, you probably won't see this in action too much, but yeah, she's still going to be great. Now, as far as the spells, the first one is going to be the Cursed Cauldron. This is your classic big bombardment spell. This is like your Blight Boil. This is like your Pit of Shades. You cast this, it's going to be punishing whatever sits in the duration, and honestly, it does really serious damage. So if you're expecting a Blight Boil, a Pit of Shades, a Comet of Cassandora effect, you got it. There's not much really to articulate here. It does some work. Next up, we have the Vengeance of Spirits. So this is kind of like a Buna effect, sort of. It doesn't do as much damage as Buna, but what's really cool about it is it silences a unit. So it actually makes it so they can't cast spells and use abilities. And in this case, that's going to be for 11 seconds. So like, let's say you're like an MLG, power gamer, and your opponent's using like Malekith or Sorceress, and you are expecting a Soul Stealer on your blob. You could preemptively cast this, silence them for 12 seconds, and then get out of there. Having a silence is cool. I think this could be situationally decent. But overall, time will tell how good the silence effect are. And there are other abilities in this little update that do have the silence ability there. So we'll see. Next, we got the Witch's Brew. This is your classic Wind Blast. So it has like no armor piercing, but it does do magic damage as well as poison damage. So if you're looking for something cheap against Beastmen, against Skaven, against Empire State Troopers, whatever, to just clear out lightly armored chaff units, this is your ability. It's just Wind Blast with poison and slightly different damage profiles. On the bottom, we do have the Forbidden Fen. So this is only 5 wounds of magic. It does lower speed and charge speed and enemy vigor. So if you were looking to spam like cheap spells, I would probably say using the Witch's Brew plus the Forbidden Fens would probably be the route that you're going to be going, right? Have you guys had to listen to like her cackling the entire time? I see the audio going off. Hopefully it's not too bad. But the Forbidden Fens, I certainly think will be decent. Like if you're looking for like a cheap spam to keep her lore passive going and keep that leadership bomb in your opponent's army, that ain't going to be bad at all. Next up, we have the Curse of the Ancient Witch. So this is an interesting one. It lowers armor by 60, which for like a Winged Lancer or like a Griffin Legion unit could be really powerful and missile resist. It is 8 winds magic, and it also spreads to enemy units nearby. So it's like a Nurgle Plague. So this could be a really potentially good one. This one needs some testing. It could be really haggard, not spread very well. But yeah, if you have like a whole battle line of dwarves and this spreads and you have like Kossars that don't have AP, that could be crazy strong. So next up, we have the Malediction of Madness. This is a good one. Situationally, rampages are always really powerful. So for example, let's say you're playing against like a salamander that's poking you. You shoot it once with Little Grom and then you rampage it, pull it to its death, right? But rampage has been reworked in this patch, by the way. So rampaging unit is uncontrollable and will attack the nearest nearby unit. But when there's no enemy units nearby, a rampaging unit will move around randomly. So you could use this to break formations. Rampage has been reworked. And again, man, there's so much to talk about in this update. But yeah, Rampage has been reworked. But that is the lore of the Hag. So we're going to be casting some of the spells here and showing you them in action. We did bring our new buddy, the Frostworm, to move across. So here he goes. He's going to hustle. Look at him all waddling and happy there. So there he goes. All right, buddy. Let's get in there and get some of the Beastmen. Beastmen are just the classic gluttons for punishment. If you ever need to test anything and kill any units, I always recommend using the Beastmen. So, all right. So first things first. SOC is still very strong. Oh, that frost armor is pretty cool. It doesn't fly though. It certainly, you know, needs a little bit of love there. But we're going to use the vortex here. So you're going to see that in action, and there it goes. So the vortex is going to pop off, and it should wreck those guys pretty hard. Yeah, you can see it's your classic vortex. They weren't even like super bunched up, and it did some good damage, right? So yeah, he was able to do that. So now we're going to reset, and we're going to come across the other spells. We don't really need to showcase. We're mainly just going to be doing the damage spells and showing you what they look like. So next up, let's go ahead and send in the beast and blob up the enemy units again. So let's see if they're going to do it. And we can even use Mother Ostankia. We can pop the Goulash and the Fury here. Man, Mother Ostankia is just so freaking powerful. And we're going to use the Witch's Brew. So here it comes. Witch's Brew is going to get cast, and you'll see it right down the pipe there. The Cauldron's pretty cool. It goes down. It applies poison as well, which is good, and does some okay damage. The damage isn't quite as good as like Wind Blast in my anecdotal experience, but it certainly ain't bad. So next up, we want to do the Vengeance of Spirits. So let's get the Frost Beastie to run away here. And we'll take a look at a unit, and there it is. So Vengeance of Spirits, yeah, there it is. Okay, so we need to blob it up. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so here it comes, and the fact that it's an AoE silence is pretty good too. All right, so there you go. Vengeance of Spirits. I guess it's kind of like Flock of Doom. Yeah, so you can see it, Flock of Doom's everything. Does some decent work. Yeah, I could see that being really good. Oh man, against vampire counts, like silencing a vampire count army in a blob fight. That ain't bad at all. So ladies and gentlemen, hopefully that showcase was useful. Witch's Brew coming in. Of course, we could use the Forbidden Fens. The Curse of the Ancient Witch, we're going to pop that real quick, and you can watch it spread. So the Curse of the Ancient Witch spreads, and it spreads, and it spreads. So they all have pretty much 0 armor right now. We can use the Bear Launcher, whatever. You guys get the idea. So that's the new lore of Magic. I think it's going to see some competitive play for sure. Obviously, because Ostankia is so good, and that's her only lore of Magic now. So she doesn't have her old Flock of Doom, which in some people might consider a nerf, because Flock of Doom is really good, but I like it a lot. I think it's more in tune with her character, and it will be fun. Anyways, folks, GG, well played. See you next time. That's it for the Hag's passive. And looking forward to seeing all this new stuff in action. All right, now it's showtime. We're here with the duel between Kislev and the Lizardmen. It's going to be myself with Katarin facing off against Outer Region, who is going to be using the Metal Slan. Metal Slan, very good against Kislev blobs. And I think he had an idea I was going to be trying out some of the new nasty blob synergies that Kislev does have. Now, as far as the frontline build goes, it's going to be Armored Kossars. You still want them at the front line in this matchup. If you go with the Kislevite Warriors, which of course are very lightly armored, although still very stalwart, 8400 HP against 82, so they actually have more HP than the Kossars because they have more models, but you know, they're very, very lightly armored. Only 30 armor, basically wearing their bathrobes, just all jacked. You don't want them getting darts from the Lizardmen. So if we're talking about cohorts, skink skirmishers, things like that, you're going to be having a bad time. So these guys, I think, are more of a secondary line unit in this matchup. However, there are going to be matchups where you want them in the front line. But here, I think having a little bit of armor to absorb the Lizardman poke is going to be good. Now the moment you've all been waiting for, Katarin on her sled, and this thing is so awesome. Look at that. So you got the double ice guard on there with her, and they actually shoot their bows in combat, which is pretty cool. So they're going to be ripping shots. It's not like Mother Ostankia where it does like disgusting damage, but it is decent. And of course you have the Kossar who's going to be driving the sled. And yeah, this thing is incredibly maneuverable. It does great damage in melee, very much like a bear sled of sorts, and I think it's awesome. Puts her up to 7k HP, which is what Ostankia had pre-patch, but Ostankia has since been nerfed to 5. But Katarin doesn't do nearly as much damage as Ostankia, so I don't think it's going to be as problematic, but I still think she'll be very, very good. She does also have the Leopard Call, the Guardian's Call now, which is a very good ability. That's one of the reasons you didn't see her picked over the Ice Witches before, but now that she has that, I think Katarin will be making an appearance. We do have the Frostfang, and for the spells, we're just going to be rocking the Ice Maiden's Kiss to clear out skinks. In the backfield, we do have Little Grom. Little Grom did get buffed in this patch. I believe it shoots a little bit faster now, so I don't think it needed that buff, but it's still very, very good. And a Patriarch, and the Golden Knight. So we brought the Golden Knight. She has a lot of cool abilities. A couple of them like that buff leadership and melee attack, but we went kind of bare bones on her and just brought the one ability, which is the Tsarina's Guardian. So she's going to be rolling with the Tsarina and buffing her and giving her physical resist to make her endure in those blobs. So that's pretty much it. She also protects the Patriarch, who's going to be healing as well. So for Outer Region's army, very wide. He's got Sara Spears, expecting cavalry and mass, and of course he's Slan Mage of Metal, going to be blasting those fat final transmutations on my army, and of course dropping the banishment, because it does have a bound banishment ability. The rest of his army is going to be skinks, so really looking to swarm me and just overwhelm my much more elite small army. So Katarin moves forward, use the Ice Maiden's Kiss on the Saris, and also the Ice Guard, able to rip a couple shots, in tandem with the downtown shots from Little Grom. So Little Grom is kind of a all-purpose utility cannon. It's good against mostly everything. You can shoot it against infantry, it'll get good value. You can shoot it against monsters, whatever. It is going to be doing great. So Tsarina Katarin hanging out in the front. She's going to be rolling on her sled, and I was just ripping some shots with the ice guard. I knew it wouldn't do much damage, but you can see this thing is extremely maneuverable. A lot of sleds are really haggard and take forever to turn around, but her sled is like really dynamic, really maneuverable. I would like to see other sleds that are less kind of conducive to being controlled in that way be updated. I think that'd be very cool, but she's very quick and can turn on a dime. It's great. So the Armored Kossar is going to be setting up in the front. Don't worry, I'll be bringing all the new stuff in this battle. We do have the Frostworm who's going to be making an appearance a little bit later in the battle as well. So Tsarina's going to be rolling in, threatening these skinks on the flank, but they'll be eating a lot of firepower. She does have 110 armor, though. She's got that frosty carapace there, which is going to be protecting her. And in the back, we do call in the heavy war sleds. I figured having heavy war sleds with her would be pretty powerful, having that like brute force Kislev blob push that can get in there and just get nice and down and dirty. So yeah, a little bit of poke from the dinos, very classic stuff. We get Kroxigors coming in the second wave, so Kroxigors are going to be the new target for my big bombardment. So Little Grom will be soon switching on to the Kroxies, and a second Kroxigor wave is calling in. So he's playing very meta Lizardmen with the exception of Life. Life being usually more common, but against Kislev sometimes you see the tech of Metal. So Katarin's going to be rolling on her ice sled. There she goes. And oh, that's so cool. And the ice guard are like ripping shots as they go. And oh man, she just drifted right through those guys. She's got good punishment spells as well. She does have the Frostfang, which is her sword, which does AoE damage on the targets below her, so that can certainly do well. Gets a little bit caught up in the Kroxigors, of course, a little scary, but there goes the Ice Maiden's Kiss right on top of the Star Spears, trying to wear down those elites. Meanwhile, on the other side, I figured I didn't want to blob right away and get, caught in a final transmutation. We have the Golden Knight of Kislev. That's what it is, right? The Golden Knight, yes. And she's going to be duking it out here with the Patriarch, fighting shoulder to shoulder, Orthodoxy, and I believe she's like the unification of the Orthodoxy as well as like the Ice Witches and whatnot, so that's kind of the theme of her. We do get a final transmutation there, so I was happy that I didn't get everything caught in it. Granted, I do get the Golden Knight caught for a second, but the idea was to bait it out on Katarin, and when that was done, move back together with Katarin and the heavy war sleds, and they're just going to wreck these infantry, right? The bear sleds are going to do big damage. Her sled is just going to be pulling through these, and yeah, Kislev is really, really going to be quite scary for sure. Little Grom from downtown shooting at the Kroxigors. He's very much not going for like a value trading build. He's more so going for just swarming and trying to get the objectives and winning on points, which is very possible, of course, for the dinosaurs here. If they wanted to trade a little bit more value, I would be expecting maybe, I don't know, some Razordons or something like that to shoot the heavy sleds. Maybe an Ancient Salamander. Like Tim the Wilder, when he plays dinosaurs, really likes to use the double Ancient Salamander to poke down Kislev infantry. But Little Grom can counter that very well. So I was wondering why this thing melted. He did use an overcasted Plague of Rust, which is negative 66. I believe that was also. There's a ton of patch notes that we're going to be going over as well. We'll probably have a live stream today where we go over that. But nonetheless, the sled's going to be bouncing around. And we do manage to finally crush through the front line, which is good. Kislevite warriors here are super clutch, right? Like normally Kossars would get just smashed in the front by Kroxigors. But now that I can mix in a Halberd unit, which has these nice anti-large attacks, they're going to be able to put some hurt on the Kroxigors and push them back with their very, very decent combat prowess, right? 40 melee defense, yes, their melee attack sucks, but if they're fighting something large, they're going to be getting a BVL of 15, which is great. So banishment going down from the Sled, and my one sled does get punished. So I decided to pull it back and just kind of salvage it, sit it behind the front line and use it as a shooting piece, and now we have some more cheap warriors coming. And it's so nice to have cheap units on Kislev. I don't think they needed it really, but it is nice. And I think like once Kislev gets a balance pass at some point, get some slight cost adjustments on certain things, the fact that they're getting these cheap warriors is going to be really, really good. So. But Tsarina still crumping around. Yep, she's very maneuverable, able to escape there, and she's going to be drifting away, flying through the ranks, and the Golden Knight is going to be following shortly behind. I've been keeping the Golden Knight with Katarin the entire time because it's basically 20% damage mitigation against range attacks, right? Katarin already, I believe, has some built-in stats. There's another final transmutation. Thankfully, it didn't hit Katarin, but it does hit the Patriarch, which is always the thing that you want to be focusing. But we are stuffed back pretty good on objectives, but the amount of healing I've done is very nasty, right? I've been getting just tons of AoE heals from the Patriarch and also from the Lullaby that's going to be coming in from the Patriarch there as well. So sleds are just sitting back and shooting. Now we're going to be calling in our cavalry as well as more infantry. So we have the Kislevite warriors hustling up. And these muscle Slavs going to be heading to the front line looking to jump on objective 2 because I felt very confident on winning objective 1. The Lizardmen durability here was buckling. The Kroxigors, they're not bullying the front line like they used to in some ways against Kislev, right? The fact that we have these warriors that can fight them off with halberds is so good. Granted, the warriors, it's very much like a rock, paper, scissors. They're very weak against the focus fire that the Lizardmen have, but as long as you keep the focus fire on other things, you're going to be having a good time. So the Patriarch and the Golden Knight, oh, the Golden Knight is so freaking cool. I don't see the Golden Knight being like individually insane. I mean, it does have a snare ability you can activate. She has a snare ability that you can activate to freeze targets in place, so maybe for like a gooning type build. But what she really does is buffing lords and heroes. Like you want to have her nearby your lord because 20% Phys Res is very good, and she's a good fighter too. Has very, very nice stats. 55, 55, and 440. And if you bring the other ability, she can buff melee attack too, but that's as she loses health. So right now, she would only be buffing like 2 melee attack, and I'd be paying several hundred gold for that, right? So Little Grom ripping shots into the pursuing dinosaurs, chasing down my dervishes, but I have my new fancy Kislevite warriors, which are going to be heading across and trying to push into the Coldwind Riders. We will see. Kosovite dervishes hanging out here. Objective 1, very firmly in our control. We have 2 units of Kislevite warriors, and even though the dinosaurs are rallying a bit of a comeback here, we should be fine. They're mostly skinks. There's no poking, no shooting, so that's going to be playing into the strength of these halberds here, which are also backed up by these sled firepower. So like I said, just parking these heavy war sleds, even though they're not like going to be very safe to send into combat, it's still armor-piercing shooting, which against the Crocscore models is doing great. So man, these are great chaff units, dude. Just holding it down and doing great. The one thing you don't want them fighting, though, is like chaff units. So the fact that they're getting to engage Crocscores here is excellent. But if they were fighting like clan rats or even just skinks on their own, it's typically going to be not a very good trade for you overall. So Zarina, the Golden Knight, and the Patriarch rolling about, and the Zarina certainly having a bit of a field day rolling over these skink skirmishers. And yeah, back in the back here, Kislevite Warriors jumping on that objective. We were able to catch some of the Coldwind Riders over here with the Kislevite Warriors as well as the Dervishes. Should be able to drag these guys down 2v1 and get this objective. And from here, the value is looking to be in our favor by about 200, and we have a lot more healing. If he had gone with a Life Slan, it might be a bit of a different story, but he went with more like raw damage punishment, which has healing cap the Patriarch and the Golden Knight, but Katarin has a very big HP pool, so I think it's going to be tough to... She basically has the same HP on the Dragon, the Frostworm, which, by the way, speak of the devil, the Frostworm will be emerging from the trees in just a second. I wanted to bring the Frostworm in to make sure I had like terror and can push these guys' objectives, and it's also not bad against the Crocscores. I don't think having the Frostworm in the initial army, and there's a big Ice Maiden's Kiss right down the pipe, I don't think that the Frostworm is going to be a good initial pick, because unfortunately the Lizardmen hybrid, not hybrid shooting, but these Skank Skirmishers would pick it apart, but as like a call-in the late game, I think it could be pretty good. So there's going to be another final transmutation there. Nails my units, the Golden Knight, all these units going to be getting pounded pretty good. And I'm just waiting for the big dragon. Oh, the dragon's already out. Okay, I missed it. So he was over there. He's got a little funky animations for sure, the way he moves. But it's cheap. It's only 1450. 8k HP, decent armor, frostbite, terror. It's okay. I have yet to draw a conclusion on it. It's not like it was like super decisive or anything this game. It literally just came in. So now it's going to be maneuvering over to this objective while we leave the Kislevite Warriors to anchor that one down and just trying to hold the Lizards back from counterpunching. I didn't want them to consolidate, get a big push, and maybe get some value against me. But Katarin's still going bananas. As far as value goes, she's probably just about paid for herself. Yeah, she costs about 2,400 in this range. So if this was old school Stonk, Mother Ostankia would probably have like 3.5k value right now. So certainly not quite as punishing as the Stank, but more durable for sure, because Stank has had a big HP nerf and also has lower armor. So Stank is going to be more of like a DPS and also gives you the lore of Hags, whereas Katarin is someone you want in the front line, anchored with the troops, enduring a little bit of punishment. Stank, you have to be careful, because she only has 5k now, and she only has 40 armor as well, so she can get the business, which is really good. I like that there's a little bit of a clear role between those two characters, but my opponent is going to be chopping out there. GG, well played. So fun one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing some of the new Kislev toys in action. Overall, I think Katarin will see a lot of play. I do think that the Froststorm probably won't see too much play. Maybe a little bit of niche play. It is a cheap source of terror for Kislev, which is nice, like so you don't have to go into the bear. But the Elemental Incarnate costs what, 500 more. It has been nerfed. It no longer has anti-large. But on that same note, it does have the Mortis engine. This thing does have more armor though. I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe it will. Kislevite Warriors are going to be a staple. They're very good. Not like any broken unit or anything, but like situationally against like monstrous play, they're going to be awesome. So yeah, Kislev just went from being like S tier to S plus tier. I think there will be a couple matchups that that can take them on. I think Greenskins can still do very well against Kislev, but aside from that, we'll have to see. Testing will tell, and there's been a fair amount of changes, so we'll see what works out. All right, guys, GG well played out of region here. 3,700 on the Sled. That was most of the value, honestly. A lot of his army did not really perform. It was too much kind of, very, very simplistic army, which of course can do well, but I think you need maybe some salamander shooting or some sort of Razordons or something. I don't really know. Anyways, guys, GG well played. See you next time. Take care of yourselves, and that is going to be it for tonight.